Hey, what is up, everybody? This is Stevie Breach coming to you here today. I am driving home. I'm away home from work. One of my favorite things to do around this time of year is to kind of like reflect on past WrestleManias. And I was kind of looking at the list that WWE.com has been putting out. They've been rolling out the 50 greatest WrestleMania matches of all time. And one came up just the other day. It was kind of near the end of the list. I mean, hell, to be in the top 40 WrestleMania matches of all time is a huge accomplishment. Of all the matches they've had, this is going to be the 41st annual WrestleMania. You got to think that there's at least 10 matches on each one. There's some that there's been as many as 15 or 16 where they were just pumping guys into the ring to make sure that they were on the card. And I mean, now that they're going 2-day events, they're just flooding like everybody on there that they can. Surprised that NXT, other than like the battle royals, haven't been able to find a way to get on WrestleMania yet. But that was a rumor years ago. But one of my favorite matches that doesn't really gain the amount of respect is Sting versus Triple H at WrestleMania 31. Honestly, when you look back at WrestleMania 31, you're probably going to say like, "Oh, that's the one where Seth Rollins cashed in the Money in the Bank, actually used the Money in the Bank briefcase the original way that it was meant to be used." It turned into like a prop where guys just won the title on a pay-per-view, like a random one, or on a Monday Night Raw. But I felt like when WrestleMania 21 came around was the way it was rolled out, the way it was told to everybody was a guy was going to win the Money in the Bank briefcase, hold it, and cash it in just the same way that the Royal Rumble was used. It was used to put you in the main event of WrestleMania and wrestle for one of the major championships for either Raw or SmackDown. Somewhere along the way, it got changed. I remember the first time that Edge ever cashed in. Um, you were looking at each other kind of like, is that what they're allowed? Are they allowed to do that? Like, is that a thing? I mean, Vince came out there and sent him down there, so it must be, in the rules as part of the contract or something like that. And then it just kept on sort of like getting used and used as a big pop and to give somebody the championship along the way. So most people are going to look at Seth Rollins, winning the big one. And then a lot of people are going to point at Sting versus Triple H. And it gets a lot of negative reviews. The biggest one, Triple H shouldn't have won that match. B, it should have been Sting versus Undertaker. That was the match since probably around 1996. Everybody, when they drew up their dream, WWF versus WCW cards, would always kind of put against each other. Um, I Sting coming into WWE as a guy who wanted to stick up for Dolph Ziggler and Randy Orton, it didn't really make a lot of sense. Why was he such against Triple H and the Authority? Was he that mad that WCW had lost the war back in the day? I don't really quite think that that's what it was. But if you go back to Sting making his debut at the Survivor Series, it was to come in. It was Team Cena versus the Authority, but Cena had already been eliminated, and it was Ziggler and Rollins. I do believe. I think we all thought that when Ziggler pinned Rollins, it was going to be his shot up the card, his ticket to the main event. But the story really just was Sting debuting. Ziggler would go on to win the Intercontinental Championship at the next pay-per-view TLC, the one that he lost to Luke Harper as like the build the Survivor Series. So he really just got his championship back. And we never saw him rise to the glory that we all thought he was going to have when he had the Money in the Bank and he cashed in the night after, WrestleMania 29. It just sucks. It just never happened. But even at the time, like it made sense for Sting to come on and to be gained into the major storyline that was in there of the Authority, trying to put the championship on their guy to think that that was going to make WWF be a bigger company, and the guys that were the good guys were not the right guys to be having the title. Didn't matter if there was Daniel Bryan, who they had stripped, John Cena. There was no good guy that was good enough to carry the ball. How they were able to make an angle that started at the Survivor Series last all the way until WrestleMania 31 was really cool. I mean, Sting showed up. He was kind of like the commercial guy for the WWE video game. They it wasn't even like the contract signing because that would have to be later. But I remember at one of the pay-per-views, they built it up as Triple H was going to call out Sting, and Triple H, took off his coat, took off his tie, he rolled up his shirt. He looked like he was ready to have some sort of a fight, but he just got backed into the corner by Sting, who then pointed up at the sign and basically like, "Let's go." When the match came down to be at WrestleMania 31, I don't think anyone had the idea that it was going to turn into the Monday Night War played out at WrestleMania. I don't think anybody on their bingo card had DX and NWO being involved in this match, but they hit it out of the park. Triple H and Sting, they went out there. Um, they had the most, basic Triple H and Sting match that they could have. Not saying that, before NWO and DX got involved, it wasn't a good match. But basically, as Sting was trying to get the advantage over Triple H, I'm sorry, I screwed up. As they were trying to get an advantage, Triple H was trying to get the advantage over Sting. um, DX came running down out of the back, break it down, and Billy Gunn. Um, we had X Pac, Shawn Michaels, the Road Dog, and they were basically able to make it where Sting got knocked down. Triple H took over the advantage, and it looked like it was just going to be a DX style win. Even at that point, I had no clue of the black and white, the NWO, the original NWO, Hogan, Hall, and Nash, coming out, and they came running down, and they made sure that the score got even, and it was going to be a straight up fight. At that point, Triple H grabbed his sledgehammer, but as he was slowly coming in to make his attack, Scott Hall handed Sting his bat. A really cool idea because a lot of people have always told the story that um, Scott Hall is the guy that kind of helped Sting with the black and white crow gimmick. He's the guy that sort of came up with the idea. So it was cool to put him in that role. And as the two came together, the bat versus the sledgehammer. Sting ended up hitting the sledgehammer in half, where the bat just basically broke, a lot like Batista. Took the sledgehammer back in the day and crushed it over his knee, Bo Jackson style. The handle just broke in half, and Triple H just cowered in fear, like, oh shit, this is going down. And at that point, Stinger, set up Triple H to do the Stinger splash, hitting him over in the corner. At that point, Triple H had not let go of the head into the sledgehammer, and it was sawed off like a sawed off shotgun, and he basically was able to held it in his hand and he punched Sting right into the face. At that moment, it was Pedigree City and 1, 2, 3, and I really thought it was bad is you had all of those guys. You have DX, you have NWO, you've got 7 of the biggest names in the history of wrestling out there outside of the ring. They already came down. They already, got physical. You really can tell that something happened to Kevin Nash. He either slipped or his knee just wasn't ready to be in action. It had been a while since he'd been in TNA at that point. I'm not sure if he had, giving up working indies or anything like that. But he took a spill during the DX versus NWO kind of like fight. But as Triple H was pinning Sting, nobody tried to break it up. Nobody tried to get in the ring. It was just 1, 2, 3. It's really fun. You get a few really good pops. Sting entrance is really really cool, but that part is the part that really bugs me. But it's a really really fun match. And if you just look at it like Sting beat Triple H and you call it a day, that's it. But really, as much as I love Triple H, a lot of the decisions that WWE makes around him just doesn't really make sense. Triple H has always been a guy that didn't really need to win at WrestleMania. If you think about Triple H's career, you know, he beats Brock Lesnar at 29. He wins he defends the championship at WrestleMania 16. He beats Sting. I really can't think of any other wins that he's ever had. He did the job for Daniel Bryan. He did the job for the Ultimate Warrior. Um, just about every year, he's always really put everybody over. He's got one of the worst WrestleMania records of all time, and he's still one of the biggest stars. Now WWE, they made like one of those like little shows that they did when the network was hot back in the day, and they said the reason why Sting lost was because they had to have um, Triple H and Stephanie come out later in the show, announce the attendance, and thank everybody. And that was going to be where Ronda Rousey and The Rock came down. And a year out, the plans for WrestleMania 32 was to be headlined by The Rock versus Triple H. And for some reason, they say that they needed Triple H to have a win at WrestleMania 31 to make him a viable contender to fight The Rock a year later. Triple H is always going to be Triple H. He is the headliner of the Hall of Fame this year. He is a time champion. Not only that, he's the guy who was like running WWE at that time. His father-in-law was the chairman of the company. The guy could do anything he wanted. If he wanted to call it The Rock, he could call it The Rock. If he wanted to call out Arnold Schwarzenegger, he could have done that. Uh, he's Triple H. You don't need to have him have a win a year before. When it really comes down to it, a lot of WrestleMania matches, it's not the end of the story. Sometimes it's even like the beginning of the story. So it's not even done. It doesn't really matter. It just they try to make sure that's one of the biggest shows of the year that they could have. I mean, Sting, he ended up I don't think he wrestled again in WWE until the summer, the pay-per-view after SummerSlam when he wrestled at Night of Champions. He wrestled Rollins for the championship. Of course, that one is where he hurt his neck. And then he didn't wrestle again until AEW. He pretty much thought he was retired until his contract ended and they were able to get him back into the ring. But I don't know. I mean, as flat as the Bray Wyatt versus Undertaker match was for WrestleMania 31, I would think it's one of the biggest regrets of WWE not giving us the big match that we all thought we wanted. Even at that point, we were like, well, we'll still get Taker versus Sting next year in Dallas. And I think even when it didn't happen in Dallas, I really thought, I remember was we were getting on the plane to leave Dallas for 32, Sting and Undertaker were seen talking to each other in the airport by lots of fans, and it was reported that they were together. I think people really thought that they were going to get the match the next year. So, I don't know. I even held on to it as it went into the pandemic after the Boneyard match with him and with Undertaker and AJ that I thought we would get Sting versus Taker in one of those like movie style matches to make sure that the guys be able to give a good performance and do different takes and stuff like that, and it just didn't pan out. But I don't know. It's one of my favorite WrestleMania matches out there. I'm able to put that. You can have a lot of favorite different matches. I think it's really cool that it's in the top 40s. It does have a little bit of mystery around it, why this or that happened. But Sting vs. Triple H, WrestleMania 31, damn good match.